So good morning again. Glad Texas is showing up and representing well today. But we have been talking individually this week, especially about kind of getting ready for the new year. And one of the things I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our the document that I sent out to everyone in the email called the plan. Everybody see that? Okay.
Yeah, I just gotta switch to my other reading glasses.
Okay, gotcha.
I got
Um, but in the plan, I kind of share a personal frustration that, when you're watching the big game, you get down to the last 2 minutes, and if it's been a close game and it all comes down to one score, taking football as an example, for the Chiefs, and you're down to that last score, and Butker comes out to kick, and he misses, which he's been doing this year some, and then the whole game, it's all his fault. And there was a game on the other day that it was the only time that the kid missed in several games, and it was at the final few seconds of the game, and so he got all the blame for losing the game. And in reality, if anyone else had made an extra play somewhere along the way, then that wouldn't have been the case. They would have already been ahead, and it wouldn't have come down to that issue. So people do planning for their business in kind of the same way. They'll wait until Christmas, and then they'll try to plan for the next year. Now, we just happen to be here at the beginning of the new year, but any time of year, you can stop and take a reevaluation of where you are and where we want to go over the next 12 months. I come from business that is in the tradition of using a rolling 12. So instead of really comparing the calendar versus the calendar, we compare a rolling 12 months. And that way we know we're hitting the same weekly cycles regardless. You've got the same fourth week of March versus the same fourth week of March last year. And so you get a lot more consistency in the same thing versus the same thing last year. It's especially true in a cyclical business like we have. There's Tom Cruise showing up on our screen there for a second. But in our business that's so cyclical, it's very important to know that we can plan, and when we look back, we don't get a false sense of, I'm doing great because I'm up over last year. Well, it's a different shift of weekends, and really you're below where you were the following weekend. Does that make sense to everybody? I think I have you unmuted. So all right, so as we go through the plan, it's going to ask you some questions based off of certain modules in our course. And so in here, you can see, of course, systems.photography. That's our main site. And once we roll into our virtual event in February, a lot more of this is going to lock up behind the membership side of things. Right now, because we're introducing the new iteration to people at Imaging USA and SPAC and even our academy, we have a few things that are open to let them see kind of what's going on and what's available to them, and then of course gets added to each week. But in these courses across the front, Volume Photography 101 and Next Level Sales, this one is the one, the Next Level Sales is the one that we mention in the plan and talk about some of the modules, like right here from Know Your Why. Well, that's this second module of that course. And so as you have time, go in there, you can pick them by module, and you can go through in the right order and hit next section. You can always go back to a section that doesn't lock it out on you, or you can skip around. It's completely up to you. We did not lock it and make people go through in order, but like you may have your avatar, you may understand the concept, you may have them nailed. So skip on down to some of the other pieces, but they're in here. And when we look at the plan, that's what this is referring to. So right here, you need to understand your why. And this is a little deeper than what you see on some commercials and that kind of thing. Know your why. It's kind of a cliche, but the reality is, both of you, why do you do what you do? Why are you not a medical records technician, or why are you not something else? There's a reason that you do what you do. And it may be that this job of being a volume photographer allows you the time and the flexibility to pick your kids up from school or to support someone else. And as we carry that further, what do we want to have come out of this? In an ideal situation where we get what we want, we're able to acquire the new business that we want, make it happen. What happens then? Well, in my case, my goal was always to help my wife leave her banking job. In the very, very beginning, almost 15 years ago, she would come help me on the weekend sometimes as I was getting things started. But then after that, she was not part of my studio, my volume photo studio at all, other than talking about the business at home. But she was literally my banker. But my goal was to get her free and be able to spend more time with the boys and that kind of thing. So everybody's got their why. Why do they do what they do, and what's really the driver? So that's the first part that you want to go through. You need to have it written down somewhere so that you can look back at it and this is really what we're here and what we're all about. Okay. The next section is the mission statement, and we want to go beyond the cliche of, oh, I have a mission statement and it's up on the wall in the lobby of the big building. Those kind of auto-generated, we intend to be the best solution for the customer. That's not what we're talking about. This ties into your why, and you really need to understand this part and be able to articulate it to your staff, to your family, even to your customers. Because, if your staff is not operating under the same intent that you have, you're going to have problems dealing with the customers. So as we empower those staff people, whoever they are, they need to be able to make decisions without you standing over their shoulder. And the only way to do that is for them to have a clear understanding of what our company's mission is. Maybe it is to be the top school and sports photographer in Southeast Maine, right? Or whatever it happens to be. If you want to focus on a particular part of Travis County and be the solution for school photography beyond the big national brands. So everybody with me so far? Okay. All right. One of the things that I run into frequently is a whole lot of baggage that comes to volume photography with people, especially if they're coming from the portrait side. I'm speaking next Saturday at Imaging USA to a group of individuals that are predominantly portrait photographers, but they're wanting to add some volume to the mix, or maybe they were doing seniors or doing studio work, and someone said, hey, I have a school, will you come photograph my school? And they said, okay. So now they suddenly have 300 or 400 kids, and they're scrambling to try to figure out how to make this volume stuff work. Well, there are a lot of misconceptions about volume photography. And so in this section, I want you to start off with what's in your mind that may be negative. For example, those individuals will frequently tell us that, well, volume photography is too expensive if they're a small operation, or volume photography is too complicated, or I have to have too much gear, or I have to, whatever, or it's boring because you have to sit and go, and everybody looks exactly the same. Whatever that preconception is, I want you to start there and write that down. And then, of course, we always internalize this because we know that we as human beings tend to do that. You're too whatever. I'm too shy and I don't like sales to photograph volume photography. I can get senior business by referrals, but then I'm stuck at 40 grand a year. Well, it's not about being the car salesperson, and you all know me, and you know that's not the type of techniques and the type of relationship selling that I teach. But whatever you're starting from, that's what I want you to put there, and then share some of this with us over on the Facebook group, because you'll find there are others that have the same starting point. They felt the same thing, or they still do, and then we can all work on getting beyond it. Right here, to overcome those, whatever those are, you need to, and then write out, maybe to overcome my shyness with regards to sales, I need to practice some role playing. So find you a role playing partner that understands what a principal is going to say, and practice, right? It all goes back to that. We all walked into the chair that we're sitting in right now, but when we first started to walk, we fell down a whole bunch of times, and some of us got banged up, but we kept after it, and we got to where it became something that we don't even think about now. And so the more we practice, the more systems that we put in place, the better we get at it, the smoother, and it just becomes muscle memory. All right. And everybody good so far? I'm going to open the chat box and keep it over on my side here. So I know I've got everybody muted, but if y'all want to put any thoughts or ask any questions, you can do that in the chat box. So. All right. So the opportunities, and this will vary for most people in a lot of different places. I know that two of y'all are in relatively the same metro area. And Eric wishes he was in Texas with the rest of us, but he can't be, but it's okay. We still love him. But when you look at going forward the next 12 months, what do you want to add to your business? It's not, well, I want to add $10,000 next year, or I want to add 50%. Percentages definitely don't help with goal setting or planning. What we want to look at is, especially if you're starting on the volume side, well, I want to add maybe 2 smaller groups, less than 200 kids at the front of the season, so I can kind of get in the groove of things. We had an out the door rule that we needed to profit at least $1,000, or else it really wasn't worth our time to go out and do it all. And we still more than double that, or about double that. But we had one particular league that we photographed for 13 years, and they were about 150 kids, very small for us. But we had been with them forever, and we had trained several groups of league liaisons over the years, so that we had a really good relationship. Parents loved us. We were family to them and to all of the parents. We watched the kids grow up. We even photographed kids after they graduated out, had kids, and started back on the other end as little cheerleaders. And so it was a group that we kept for a variety of reasons, not only just because we had that relationship, but it was always at the 1st of August. So I could take the crew out, and I could even bring in extra people or new people, or in our case, franchisees from our studios that we were opening, and we could overstaff that event so that people got the rhythm down and they understood what the process was going to be. They were super easy to work with because they knew exactly the same drill. We photographed in the same cafegimatorium of a learning center for, most of those 13 years. And it was very reliable. I could count on it. And, it helped us get in the groove of the season. But if I were just going out, I wouldn't want to just pick up one of those, unless we were wanting to give a second crew more things to go photograph. Does that make sense? So the question is, on that out the door, we call it the OTD, on that rule, when I say $1,000 in profit, what are you calculating as profit? For me, I'm an operations guy. We always used to talk when we go teach our camps that Chris was a marketing guy. So he would say that that's a $4,000 event, because that was the revenue that came in. I'm an operations guy. I don't care about the top line. How much of that did I skillfully get to keep and ethically? So to me, that's an $1,877 job, because that's what it was the last time that I photographed them. So, it depends on what you want to look at, but I think the more relevant number is, what do you get to keep out of that? Now, that doesn't include the higher level salaries, or that doesn't include building or internet or any of that stuff. It's the job's profit. So when I look at it, it was total revenue in from the job, tax out, rebate out, and then expenses that we incurred, like the cafegimatorium, the labor, and the print costs. Those are the big three. And of course, you've got $40 of pizza or whatever it is. But it's the job's P&L. And that's one of the segments that we'll have coming up here probably in February at the Academy, is doing a snapshot P&L on every job that you do. You can do it in Excel. You don't have to do it in anything fancier than that, but have one spreadsheet and a template, and just do that for every job that you have. And it's just how much in and how much have you been able to keep at the bottom of that particular job. So ultimately, you pay your phone and your other things, and that'll take some of that out. But I'm just checking settings here. So, but does that make sense? That's what I'm counting. So if you want to get some jobs, let's say if you are starting out or you're not quite as comfortable, I do have a template for that, and I know we're going to roll it out, but I will send it out. I'll go ahead and put it in for the members now. By the weekend, I'll put that up, and I just call it simple P&L. So, but if you want, I need one big thing. I need an 800 kid event. So, you can set that up, but just, you want to set your goals here of what do you want to add in the next rolling 12 months. If you want to look at it specifically, I need to add 3 more elementary schools. I don't want any high schools. They're a whole lot of work. The kids are fun. It's fun to engage with them, but I'm going to spend a whole lot more time at that facility for the same amount of money as if I go out and I photograph an elementary school, I come back and do a makeup, and I'm done for the season. We always know that elementaries are the best, the easiest to get a good return on. So how many of each of those do you want to do? And then you can look at the math below that. So you could plug in the numbers that are relevant for you. These are kind of base averages across the central part of the US. And, elementary school, they're not as big as high schools. They're 3 to maybe 500, but they usually top out about 400. And then they add another elementary school. You notice there's a whole lot more elementary schools in town, and there may only be one high school. So they keep them at that level so that they can manage that many of those crazy, wild, drunken monkeys running around the school. Okay. And then it will depend on what you're offering. But in an elementary school, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to take really about 50% job profit out of that. I'm always conservative on the numbers that I put up, so I say 45%. But if you, for easy math, if you have 400 kids, and at $25 average ticket, then you ought to be able to keep about half of that. So directories, daycares, preschools, they are different, and we talk about that in Volume Photography 101. Right in the very beginning, I go through all of the different, really the 5 different sections of volume photography, and kind of break out those differences and challenges with each. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check that out, it's there for you. In Next Level Sales, we talk about the avatar, and there's a whole module on just knowing your avatar. So I want you to go there and look at it, and just know that you're going to need an avatar for each of the different types of volume photography that you do. Sarah, who's our example in the class I teach on this, as an elementary school principal, is very different than the avatar for a sports league, a soccer league of 1,000 kids. That's a very different person. Caroline is not the same person that Sarah is. They have different needs. They have different desires. Now, they both want happy parents that don't gripe and chew them out. But Sarah is paid. It's her job. It's her mission in life. It is everything to her. On a league, they're volunteers. They have a whole lot of other life happening, and they have less tolerance because they have more bitchy parents in many cases. And so the way that we need to interact and the information we need to give to them as we onboard them as a group, they're different. So you need to identify for you, at Chris Bailey or Bailey Christensen, sorry, this is the league that we're going after. This is who our normal interaction is with. Maybe it's an athletic director at one of the schools. And so we need to be able to write out what to expect and do for them, knowing who they are. Everybody understand the concept of the avatar, at least at this level? If you have a question, drop it in the chat box. But the module in the course explains it in great detail with lots of examples. And, if you have some basic questions, check that out. And if you still want, if you need to get back with me, obviously I'm here. That's why I'm here. So looking at your business, where you are today versus where you were a year ago versus where you want to be a year from now. One of the things you need to really kind of take into consideration is what we call a SWOT analysis. And this is not the armed police officers that are breaking into a building. This is SWOT, and it's a very common business practice. You should be doing these once a quarter, at least. Some people do it once a month. It depends on how quickly your opportunities and your threats pop up. But in our business, we recommend that people do this at least once a quarter. So we're looking at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And on each of those, the strengths are something that are uniquely you. What is it about Harry Marples that no one else has? And I'll warn you that if it's, well, I have the newest Nikon fancy mirrorless camera and I've got all the top lens, I've got $15,000 of camera sitting on top of every tripod. That's a weak strength, because all someone else has to do to match that is to go buy the same thing. If you have that gear and it allows you to take wow kind of photos, then maybe it's an advantage. It's a strength for you versus your competition. But the biggest companies in the country, who obviously did something right, or else they wouldn't be the size they are, LifeTouch and Interstate and even Strawbridge and some of the others, they don't target that top end camera at all. They all have, mid-range cameras at best. And so, I always caution people about using gear as one of their big strengths. It needs to be something about, your relationship building. Maybe, John, you are able to walk up and never meet a stranger. You make a good connection with people. They like you. Even if they have to sit next to you on a plane ride to Tahiti, they still like you by the time you get to the other end, right? So that's a great strength for our business. Weaknesses are things that you suffer from. These are things that perhaps others do that you don't or can't. One example of this might be they put up proofs digitally online for parents to see very quickly. And, that is an incredible thing to be able to do. Well, technology allows you to do that. And if you haven't caught up and you're not on the right platform to be able to do that, yeah, that's a weakness. And it will cost you in a presentation, or it may even cost you that someone takes something away from you. So there are a variety of different weaknesses that a competitor could, really get in there and take advantage of. That's why when I send out like my coaching call form, that's one of the questions on there is, if I were a competitor, tell me honestly, what could I exploit? If I came into the area and I just watched you for a month, what could I exploit? What do you know in your business that isn't quite what it should be? Most of the time I get delivery times as a challenge. And I know several of you here maybe not have that now, but had that at one point in the past due to a particular lab relationship or something like that. So that's an important one. You've got to be brutally honest on the weakness so that you can overcome them. Opportunities. These are things that, maybe we just moved into a new area, and so it's all a big opportunity. We have 500 new schools that we haven't met before. Maybe they opened a new school, or a principal retired, and so we have a brand new principal that the other one was stuck with LifeTouch, but now the new one might be more open to change. Maybe you have a new membership to Chamber of Commerce, whatever it is, opportunities that you can take advantage and grow some new business over the next few months. And then threats. Maybe there's a brand new competitor that moved into town. Now, I personally think there's room in our industry for everyone that deserves to be there. But for example, some of you here are within an hour of each other. Some people drive for that, no big deal. Well, instead of being a threat and a competitor, my relationship or my personality is one to build a relationship and to be able to work together with that person and kind of push everybody else out. I've never shied away from other competitors in the area. If they're not sleazy and skeezy, then let's work together. Maybe I need an extra photographer. Maybe they need an extra photographer. Or hey, we can come up and we can intermingle because we don't do the exact same kind of events. Maybe they do high schools and I do elementaries. Okay, let's go get that district, and we've seen where sometimes those quote unquote competing companies have actually joined. My good friends, Rain Galloway and Carl Bott are a really good example of this. Carl was speaking at one of my events in Nashville, and Rain was there, and they got to talking. They both are from the Nashville area. She did primarily schools, wanted to get into sports. He did primarily sports and wanted to get into schools. And she went to ask him his advice. And by the time they left the conversation, they're partners now. And now they're a huge company that handles that side of Tennessee. And they do a great job. They do schools, sports, and it all folds across. So look at the threats as things that, yeah, this needs to not happen, or things that might be turned into an opportunity where we could grow some business. One of my examples there is if for example, if you were in Austin and Killeen was suddenly closing, the military base out at Fort Hood, if they were closing down, any photographers in Killeen would suddenly be in trouble, because that's, a huge percentage. That's the driver behind the community. So, just being in the know of what's going on. I do give you a place where you can write those out. In reality, probably a full-size sheet for each would be better, especially the first time or two that you do it. It ought to be very thorough the first time that you do. After you've done one, you can come back and you can compare this one with one in the past, and you can see how they've changed, right? My strengths, I'm still strong in these. Maybe they've changed. My weaknesses, one of my mentors always taught us to really focus on teaching the strengths, building the strengths, and that will kind of carry your weaknesses, unless they're a critical weakness. I mean, if you've got a soldier who has had his legs blown off, that's a weakness that will prevent him from marching 50 miles today, unless, he gets transportation to get somewhere. So, there are certain things that you've got to address as weaknesses, but there are many studies that show if you build on the strengths and you beef up that section, it will kind of pull down the impact of the weaknesses. Again, y'all are welcome to drop thoughts or questions in the chat as we go. So looking back over the last 12 months, and everybody here has been doing some work. So you've got a rolling 12 back, which coincidentally happens to be a calendar year as well. But if you look back over your top 3 successes, maybe it was Springfield Elementary, maybe it was Wiley Youth Soccer, whatever it is, write down the challenges, and then we want to address, why are those the challenges or the successes or the challenges, and what can we do to get more of the successes going forward, or mitigate some of the challenges if we ran into some of those. Does that make sense for everybody? This honesty with your business, both positive and negative, is very critical. It's the sharpening the saw. It's you stop, you sit down, maybe you have your green tea or your coffee and your smooth jazz on the radio, and you just give it 10 or 15 minutes a few times, and you fill it out, and you get an understanding of where you're coming from. You'll lower some walls of honesty in your brain. That this should be my answer, but I don't want to write it down because I don't want anybody else to see it. Okay, fair enough. Save it in a file and call it, I don't know, funny cat video or something, and so that nobody else goes there to see it. But you've got to be able to have a starting point to address it. As we take that information. We understand these are the things that are successful for us. These are the things that are challenged that I want to avoid going forward. Then we need to get out there and kind of put some new things into action. So you've decided, I want to add 3 new elementary schools and 2 new sports leagues. Okay, so let's say you profit $2,000 from each of those elementary schools. That's a fair number. I know people that take a lot more from that. I mean, like a lot more. So, but that's 6,000, right? 2 sports leagues, 500 kids each, or less, even 350. That gives you 700 kids total. We typically profit $9 to $10 per kid that we photograph. And when we look at the overall thing, so if it's 500 kids, I'm going to profit somewhere between $4,500 and $5,000. Again, that's my job profit that I look at. So I could very easily, with let's say that'd be 700 or 7,000 plus the 6, that's $13,000. Would $13,000 of additional profit help anybody on the call? Would that make a pretty major difference in your life? It might not allow your spouse to quit their job, but it could add that new hot tub wing on the deck, Eric, or it could add, whatever, it could finish out a new bathroom or something, or it could just provide some cushion in case the bills get heavy. We certainly know it's been a very volatile last couple of years, and that inflation is still a mess. But so decide what you want to add and create an avatar for each type of event so that you can get in the mind of who it is that you're going to speak to. If you show up to a school elementary principal and you're speaking the language of sports leagues, because that's all you do is sports league people, they're not going to click. Right. And if they show up on your website and all that's there is sports league stuff, okay, you can do volume, but do you know how to handle getting our picture day to go off smoothly and without a hitch? If they show up and all that's there is portrait work or landscape work or car show events, I mean, these are all things that I've seen when I've sat down with people and gone through the initial consultation. Okay, let's pull up the website, and it's car show pictures and pictures of egrets at the park. That would not give me any confidence as a new elementary principal to let you come take pictures of my kids. So you want to make sure that wherever you send them, that they are able to see that, okay, I can trust you to do it. The avatars live socially in their environment. For example, Sarah, her elementary school is online. It's a Facebook group. And in that module about the avatar, I give you a specific example. I just pulled up Springfield Elementary because every state has a Springfield. So I knew I'd find one, and there were several, and I just picked one. It's up near our buddy Tim McDonald. I don't think it's one that he photographs, but it's up in that area of New Jersey. And in that Facebook group, you can click it. You can actually go to their Facebook group, and as you look down, you can see who's retiring. It shows the 5 new staff members and teachers. It shows students that do well. It shows all these things. You can join. Just click join. You're in, and you can provide thumbs up, kudos, compliments, just be a positive reinforcement of the good things they do. If you know that Wanda is retiring and suddenly a box of Tiff's Treats warm, fresh cookies show up for Wanda, maybe you hand deliver it. Hey, I just saw that Miss Wanda is retiring after 27 years here at Springfield. I just wanted to say good job and thank you for all that she does. And you just took her this box of cookies. She doesn't know you. They don't know you. But if you are there and branded and whatever, you're not trying to sell them anything. You're just there to reward a public servant. It gets that awareness going. And that's what we talk about in the sales funnel module. They're suddenly aware of you in a very positive way. So find out where the avatars live socially and write out a plan so that they become aware of you and you get them into your sales funnel. They get interest and you find out what their pain points are. You solve that and they take action. We talked about the website and just getting a plan for engaging with those avatars, whoever they may be. You better know your competitors in the area. Now, people are afraid sometimes to post their price list. Well, my competitors will find out my price. If they want it, they'll have it. If I'm a competitor in your area and I want to know everything about you, I will do that. And there's nothing you can do. You know, I'll get it from picture day if I need to, but I'll have a good sense of what you're offering. I gave our picture day price list as a PDF to the league to post on the site on the parent side so that they could pull it down, because back when we used to do them by hand, we would put the order form up there so they could pull it down and have it filled out. And about 40% of them brought them already filled out from home. So now it's all online. So we don't do that, but the prices themselves, you know, you don't have to necessarily put that out as a price list. You can put it into the gallery, you know, in your online cart. But, you know, the other things about your competitors, you should know their websites in and out. You should see when they do those tacky painted or even photographic backgrounds for sports. And you see the kid up against the background, you see a shadow down the side of the stadium because the kid's standing next to this actual background and he's throwing a shadow on it. Things that should just be built into your responses when you're talking to new avatars and showing them how you take dynamic extracted images so that won't ever happen, right? They're going to be fresh, modern images that will make your parents go, wow. Need to be in our Facebook group. Some of you are, actually most of you are. And I realize that it's been the accelerator students, so there haven't been that many so far, but over the next 3 weeks, I'm speaking physically standing in front of several thousand people. Not as a pitch, but with the conversation of coming and joining the systems community. So hopefully we'll have more people in there to engage with and grow with. But share your thoughts. If you want feedback from others, I know some of the other groups out there get a little snarky, and that's not the purpose of our group. They're either very technical or they're kind of, well, you should know better than that. And that's really not the nature and culture of our systems community. And it's not the culture of anybody on this call. So for this particular group, you can reach out and connect with me. As the system grows, my one-on-one time will back down, but certainly this quarter and going forward, y'all are welcome to reach out and let me know. You've got email. I think all of y'all have my phone number. You're welcome to call me or just go set up a call. If you need to talk, you've got your link. Just go set up a coaching call and let's talk. You should take copious notes about every interaction, prospects, parents. If you use a digital system, I use both Monday and Airtable, and I have spreadsheets, not only so we can handle customer service items, but if I have a conversation with a parent or get a thought or whatever, I'll just come back, put it in there, and then I can sit down and they're all in one place. I can do it from an app on my phone, and it helps keep me on track. How many of you ask for customer referrals? Drop over in the chat box if you currently get regular referrals from your existing customers. That's a very powerful thing that you can use going forward. And then review, refine, and repeat. Those 3 R's. Just, you got to look at it, see what worked. Let's do more of that. See what didn't work. Let's not do that again, and move on down the road. This just kind of goes through some of the long game items. Monday and Airtable. I'll send you a link. Let me send you a link because I think it gives you something. And so I'll send you a couple of links to both of those as soon as we finish the call. I'll send it out to everybody. They're very similar programs. The long game is a little different mindset. It's you can use the fact that everything is connected to help get you in places where you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. One of our bigger leagues, we have 1,500 soccer kids, and we had tried for a long time to get in the door, and there was one decision maker very tied to another company, a chain, but another company, and they really weren't very good. And we went several times and took photos of them taking photos out in the sun with their caps turned around backwards, sitting on literally a 5-gallon bucket, just like a hardware store bucket. And they'd take the picture and look at the back of the camera and take another picture out in the sun with the weeds behind them. And it was awful. And we couldn't ever break through, even with those photos, until I had one of their board members come and show up as a parent. I had known him for a long time. And so I just walked over and stood next to her in line and said, all right, what's the deal? Why can't we get in and have this conversation? And I said, I know you're not getting a rebate. Oh, we can't do kickbacks. Yeah, Tony told us about that. And the current photographer had told them that no, you can't do kickbacks. That's illegal. So they had never paid them a rebate. Well, I just did the quick math in my head. I said, you realize that if we had been photographing you for the same number of years, 13 years at that time, we would have paid over $30,000 in commission. It is a normal part of sports league photography all across the country. The schools get it, sports leagues get it. It's just a normal fundraiser. And within a day, I had an appointment with the board. They had a special meeting just to have the conversation. And when they found out that it wasn't illegal, it was perfectly legal, and it was the norm, and that he had put his daughter through college with the money he hadn't paid them, we got the gig. So sometimes it's just about having the connections, because every parent is on something else. They're on a selection committee at church, or they're on, some other league, or their parents at another school, etc. You can add offsite or off-season events. If you do baseball in the spring, and that is when they do their pictures, they typically across the country don't do fall photos for the baseball, softball leagues. They're usually a once a year thing. Well, that's a shame, because a lot of them they just play in t-shirts or lesser uniforms because it's more developmental in the fall. So host a hero event. You can call it a hero event, and you come in. That's just for individual stuff. You're not doing any team photos, but anybody that wants to come, you're going to do these cool banners and statues. And there's a statue right there of one of my sons playing t-ball. You could do those kinds of things in the off season and get a whole lot of people to keep your staff busy. So there are just several things through here of the long game and things that you can do to help keep building as you go into the next year. That's a lot. Amen. But if you'll use this and you'll go through and you'll get your understanding of where things are, it'll give you better ammunition as you go forward into the new year. Coming back over here to the new iteration of the site, on the first page, you've got these two courses are complete. It's just business is filling in each week, 2 new modules add to it. Latest posts, the studio sit downs, the labs. No, different things show up if you're signed in as a member and if you're not. So it triggers one way or the other. And then of course, this call, the next events are live events. I'm on stage at the beginning of imaging, at the back of imaging, and then 3 days later at SPAC, talking about sales funnels. But you can all of it will keep up to date for you. These are the other sections, the courses that are coming in February that will release by the 1st of February. The basic level sales of like the 6 questions and how to go through and make those initial sales calls. How do I search for where to go, that kind of thing. Software and workflow. I've got some appointments set up at imaging with some of the vendors to get their latest and greatest so that I can come back and I can share that information with you in there. The gear and setup, I'll show you that here in just a second. And of course, year-round photography. On the first page, let's see. There are in here, there are the year-round photography pieces already shot for the last 3 months. And but they'll pop into this course along with January, and we're going to go ahead and do a whole year worth of them. I know people make fun of me because I'm a little sillier in those than I am in real life, but I like my shark suit. I don't get to wear it very often, and that's the only time I get to wear my Cub Scout Pack Daddy shirts as well. So we try to have a little fun with the year-round systems, because you need to know what's booking right now. If you try to go out and book a dance event in August, it's just not going to be an open conversation. So we want you to maximize your time. All right, templates and downloads. That section, I'm opening them in new windows, but these are things that you've already gotten, the plan, and then the season checklist. I know, Harry, we had talked about, being able to go back and you already have business. And so taking that, getting it written down, and then here's what I want to add to it, or here's how I want to change each of those jobs. The season checklist does that. And so it gets some basic ideas. And then here are the challenges that you had last season with particular jobs or particular items. And then this year, it breaks it out a little more detail. It's what's in the plan, but this breaks it out in a little bit more detail. The year-round photography calendar is here. And this shows you what is booking right now. For example, anything that is an orange line, that's when these things book. We see school photos across the country. We used to say those would start in November and they would go through about March. But now we're seeing several of them even doing it, they'll take a week or 2 off after school's out, but then they'll make a decision for the fall, which makes it really hard on everybody, especially if you're photographing seniors in that school. You needed to have talked to the juniors before school let out, but we're finding that window pushing further and further back. But this will tell you all the different things that when they're booking, when they're photographing, and then things that you could do any time of the year. Cheer and gymnastic schools, church directories or synagogue directories, you can do them sometime besides the holiday season. You know, if you do them in the summer and then take a week off and come back and do the second week, you get everybody that was on vacation, everybody's tan, the kids are home from school. It's a much better environment. So that's what these teal colored bars are. And then, whoops. All right. And the press reset and let's go. It's another tool to use to be able to kind of get things geared up and going forward. The diagrams, we've reiterated all of our diagrams. We have 10 of them coming in here. We're releasing a couple each month to kind of keep people moving forward. If there's a particular setup that you want to see, let me know and I'll send it to you before it releases up here. But I'll show you here. But if you see it over on this on the shared screen, each of these is, well, in this case, our two most popular sets. This is the arc reflector. I don't know if any of you are using the arc reflectors in your photographs yet, but it's a great look and it's super easy to do. You can do it with one light and a reflector. The reflectors cost like $140, so they're much cheaper than a light. And that's all you have to have. Now you can add a background light and a hair light if you want to, but they, you know, this is an incredibly flexible thing. We have several people that are using these in their schools, not at the kindergarten level yet, but at the junior high and high school level, they can be trusted to stand behind it. The little kids, sometimes somebody will get off balance and they drop into it, but which is odd because they never fall off the stool, you know. So, but it's a great look, and if you don't have a lot of lights, it's very easy to replicate. And then this is green or white screen. It's a 3-light set. You don't need a hair light because you have the rim lights, but you can do very smooth, even lighting. Or if you want to have that edgy, sharp, really dramatic look, you turn down the main light and bump up the side lights. That's it. It's super easy. And it's a very, very flexible setup. We did tens of thousands of kids on this exact set for years with green, like you see in the photo. And then we switched them over to white about 3 years ago. You can do white vinyl, you can do white paper, you can do whatever. But this is a great set for you to take out into the new year. The Fabulous Five, you all know what the top events are. This really is more for the portrait side that is looking to add some business. We have the new podcast that has already been recorded for 8 episodes. We'll release that at SPAC, and so it will launch, and it'll be you can click it in either place. So the menu down the side, it's got words. If you click it, it minimizes if you don't. And you've got home, you've got resources. If you just want to look at the posts, I'm online, so it's being a little slower, but it'll pull just the posts. It will pull the episodes here as they go up. If you click community here, it takes you over to the Facebook group. Okay. In this particular case, I'm not logged in, so it's letting me join. Only people that are members of the community can join that. And then, of course, the events. So that kind of covers both moving forward, and it covers the new iterations of the site. I'm going to come back over here to everybody now. And was that too much stuff? Was that just the right amount? Was it stuff you already knew? Was it helpful? I'll tell you what, you can unmute. I clicked through the mutes, but I'll release it so it'll let y'all unmute if you want to. And So I saw your lips moving, Eric, but I didn't hear you.
I gave you a thumbs up and said this was good
Oh.
info. Always good info.
Any questions on anything? Everybody good? Tell you what, I'm gonna stop the recording side of it.